Right, so the Labour MP Peter Kyle built the foundations of his public reputation as a humanitarian, out of the field in fact. They were near the corridors of Westminster, but in the post-conflict zones of Eastern Europe. He used to be an aid worker in Romania and Bosnia and Kosovo. He witnessed firsthand the suffering of displaced children and the moral duty of those in power to act in the face of catastrophe. His early career was defined by compassion and direct service to the vulnerable. That image of the principled humanitarian-turned-politician followed him into Parliament, where he rose through the ranks of the Labour Party to become Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology under Keir Starmer. And yet the Peter Kyle who now sits on the front bench bears little resemblance to the man who once helped deliver aid and decried bureaucratic indifference. Today, Kyle stands accused not of confronting injustice, but of enabling it. He's refused to call out the genocide unfolding in Gaza, smeared internet privacy advocates as predators. His office triggered the police arrest of a Brighton constituent who emailed him about Palestine and chosen party loyalty over any morality he seemingly ever once had. His trajectory is not simply one of political transformation, it is a case study in how public conscience can be quietly extinguished in the pursuit of power. And it's little wonder, therefore, that his constituency, in light of all of this, has become a focal point of what is a broader picture of more national displeasure at this government and its actions where it comes to Gaza and Israel. Right, so Peter Kyle's early biography is defined by experiences that ought to shape a conscience for life. He worked with the charity Children on the Edge and spent nearly a decade in the Balkans, including during and after the Bosnian War. He was instrumental in establishing an orphanage in Romania. He later completed a PhD in community development. In 2018, reflecting on his time in the aid sector during the Oxfam abuse scandal, he wrote of chaotic yet brave workspaces and the duty of organisations to respond to suffering with transparency and humanity. These reflections came from his lived experience, from working with traumatised children and navigating the bureaucracies of international aid. This moral grounding is precisely why Kyle's current position now feels so jarring to so many of his constituents and other people who are looking in. A man who once gave speeches about rebuilding war-torn communities now avoids condemning mass starvation, forced displacement, and military targeting of Palestinians. When a politician with Kyle's past refuses to speak out against clear violations of international law in Gaza, when he parrots cautious language about humanitarian pauses while hospitals and schools get reduced to rubble, it raises a deeper question. What happens when political survival takes precedence over the very values that brought someone into public life to begin with? The Israeli assault on Gaza has, since October of 2023, drawn condemnation from across the humanitarian world. The International Court of Justice declared that Israel's actions in the territory plausibly constitute genocide. UN agencies have documented systematic obstruction of aid, of mass killing of civilians, the use of starvation as a weapon. The very agencies Kyle no doubt worked with the likes of before entering politics himself. Entire universities have been demolished. Bakeries and clinics have gone. Water infrastructure has been devastated. A war of starvation enacted. The World Health Organization, Médecins Sans Frontières, they've declared the situation one of catastrophic humanitarian collapse. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International have documented widespread violations of international humanitarian law. Israeli human rights group B'Tselem has openly accused the Netanyahu government of pursuing a campaign of ethnic cleansing in Gaza, have directly accused their own state now of committing genocide. So in this context, therefore, calls for an unconditional ceasefire have come from these same organisations. And yet Peter Kyle, like much of the Labour front bench, not to single him out particularly in this respect, has refused to join those calls. Instead, he has echoed the leadership's preferred framing of supporting time-limited humanitarian pauses that serve more as public relations than actual relief. So the moral vacuum in this response sticks out like a sore thumb. Kyle, the former aid worker, understands what it means for food convoys to be blocked. He's seen this sort of thing happen, for children to be pulled from the rubble. He's worked in such areas. He knows that pauses in bombing are not the same as peace. And yet he sticks with the government message on these things, doesn't he? In Brighton and Hove, his patch, a quite progressive part of the country, this silence has not gone unnoticed. Just the other week, residents staged a dramatic protest outside Kyle's Church Road office. Hundreds of pots, pans and cooking utensils were laid outside the door, then banged loudly by demonstrators there. These items symbolise not only the destroyed kitchens of Gaza, but also the images of desperate people holding pans out at food distribution centres, hoping today is the day they might get fed. This protest captured the broader truth. The demand for a ceasefire is not radical, it's not ideological, it's a cry for the preservation of life. It's a basic. It's a starting point. It should be. That Peter Kyle cannot even echo this minimal demand, despite his humanitarian past, is a betrayal of the principles he once embodied, clearly, don't you not think? The starkest example of this, though, was the shocking incident that unfolded the month before in Brighton. At 4 a.m, police officers raided the home of a 54-year-old woman who had emailed Kyle and other MPs days earlier to express anger at the ongoing genocide in Gaza. The email had actually been directed at others. She only copied in her own MP Kyle out of respect. But she was arrested, held for 8 hours, had her devices seized. Her messages, while emotionally charged certainly, were not threatening. Yet the response was swift and punitive. This incident was triggered by Kyle's own office, as it turned out. Chris Henry, Kyle's Director of Operations, filed the complaint that led to the arrest. Kyle has not publicly condemned the police action, nor offered support to the woman detained, his constituent. Instead, he's allowed the inference to linger that emotional expressions of political rage are now grounds for criminal investigation. That emailing your MP about genocide could actually lead to your arrest. But that's just an insane thought, isn't it? And yet, we've seen it happen. But this, of course, is more than just a localised scandal. It's a microcosm of a growing national trend, the criminalisation of political speech. Under the pretext of protecting public figures, dissent is being reframed as harassment. The law used, potentially the Malicious Communications Act of 1988 or the Communications Act of 2003, was originally designed to deal with threats, not political critique. The Crown Prosecution Service's own guidelines emphasise that prosecution must be necessary and proportionate, and that heightened public interest applies to speech directed at politicians. Legal experts and civil liberties advocates argue this arrest may actually breach Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which protects freedom of expression, including political speech that offends, shocks or disturbs. When an MP's office enables such disproportionate enforcement, it sends a dangerous signal. Moral dissent is no longer welcome in the British democratic process, and it all lends more weight to the increasing viewpoint that the Starmer regime is repressive and is authoritarian. When even writing an email about genocide to your own MP risks a knock on the door before sunrise, we're no longer dealing with representative democracy. We're dealing with fear and deterrence and the suffocation of conscience. Peter Kyle's conduct as a cabinet minister reveals another dimension of his transformation from moral actor to political functionary. As Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, Kyle is responsible for the implementation of the Online Safety Act, which mandates age verification for accessing adult content and introduces sweeping new powers for regulators to police internet activity. In defending the Act, Kyle has gone further than many of his colleagues. On national television and in interviews, he declared that if you want to overturn the Online Safety Act, you are on the side of predators. He invoked the name of Jimmy Savile. He implied that those who use VPNs to avoid the law are aiding child abusers. These are extraordinary claims. VPNs, virtual private networks, are legal in the UK and widely used for legitimate purposes, from cybersecurity to whistleblowing to avoiding data profiling. They are used by human rights organisations, by journalists, by political dissidents around the world. They are also used by ordinary people who simply wish to protect their own personal data from surveillance. So Kyle's framing not only demonises those who resist intrusive internet laws, but collapses all dissent into moral deviance. It's a tactic straight from the authoritarian playbook. Conflate privacy with criminality and watch the public self-censor. What makes Kyle's position especially indefensible is that several MPs in his own party, including senior figures like Jonathan Reynolds and Sarah Champion, have claimed VPN subscriptions on their own expenses. This was documented by a Politico investigation which showed that parliamentary VPN use is not only widespread, but state-funded. We're paying for them to do this. In short, VPNs are fine for ministers, but suspicious when used by the public. That's not law enforcement, that's ideological policing. Kyle, who once worked to protect the communications and safety of children in war zones, now denigrates tools that allow British citizens to protect their privacy from their own government. Civil liberties groups such as Liberty and Open Rights Group have voiced alarm about the Online Safety Act's potential to normalise surveillance and pave the way for encrypted messaging bans, content censorship and the stigmatisation of anonymity online. Kyle's language linking VPN use to paedophilia has made him a central figure in a campaign to render privacy toxic. The unintended consequences of the Online Safety Act extend far beyond the boundaries of social media. Among the major organisations sounding the alarm is the Wikimedia Foundation, which operates Wikipedia, one of the most visited non-commercial platforms going. The Act's sweeping definitions of harmful content and its mandates around age verification risk ensnaring not just for-profit tech companies, but open knowledge projects dedicated to public education. Wikipedia hosts user-generated content and allows anonymous editing by volunteers. This makes it theoretically subject to the same duties imposed on other platforms to assess and mitigate content risks for children. But applying age verification or real name identity policies to Wikipedia would fundamentally undermine its open collaborative model. It would deter contributions, shrink access, and erode trust in it, whatever you might think of Wikipedia. And Wikimedia UK has warned that the Online Safety Act could lead to what it calls a chilling effect on free expression and public knowledge. Furthermore, there's concern that Ofcom's new enforcement powers, broad and ill-defined, could be used to demand changes to Wikipedia pages dealing with politically sensitive subjects. And this has led to fears that Wikipedia could face censorship pressures over articles relating to Gaza, to LGBTQ+ issues, political protest, or historical interpretation. Thus, Peter Kyle's enthusiastic promotion of the Online Safety Act not only demonises privacy-conscious citizens, it potentially undermines one of the few remaining digital commons. It's a reminder that the real danger of such laws lies not just in their immediate use, but in the structures of control they make possible. When even encyclopedias are in the regulatory crosshairs now, the public should ask who really feels safer here, and at what cost. Peter Kyle's transformation from aid worker to cabinet minister is not an unusual one. Many politicians reinvent themselves from the careers they had before. But what is unusual and tragic is that in his reinvention, Kyle has abandoned the very principles that once made him effective and admirable. His silence on Gaza, his complicity in political policing, his smearing of privacy advocates, and his subordination of truth to power all speak to a deeper crisis in British politics. We are witnessing the rise of a new political type, the technocratic moralist, who uses the language of safety to suppress dissent, who conflates privacy with predation, and who allows conscience to be criminalised in the name of standards. Kyle did not invent this role, but he plays it very well. And yet the story is not over. His constituents, those banging pans outside his office, those writing letters, those risking arrest apparently to speak out, are reminding the country of what real moral clarity looks like. They are the true legacy of humanitarianism in public life. Kyle may have forgotten it or abandoned it, but they haven't. Little wonder with senior Labour figures such as this that so many Labour councillors have been jumping ship to other parties, defecting or just quitting out of disgust and sitting as independents. But it really is something when some are jumping ship with the intention of joining a party that still isn't quite a party yet, and still very much doesn't have a name. Yes, Labour is losing councillors, it seems, to Corbyn's new nameless party already, so do check out that story in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. If that doesn't speak volumes, I don't know what does. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe if you haven't done so already, so as to ensure you don't miss out on all new daily content, as well as spreading the word and helping to support the channel at the same time, which is very much appreciated. Holding power to account for ordinary or working class people, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.